So there's so many videos like this one, it's kind of ridiculous. I don't want to just blend in, okay, and just say the same things everybody's saying.
Oh, dopamine detox. Oh, I hit the gym every day. Oh, I read every day. Like,
Now, I think what you probably actually want is just real distilled life lessons, okay, that have been learned in the trenches, building a real actual business that has actually made the amount of money that the title says, okay? So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm talking about the actual daily disciplines and thinking patterns that have enabled me to earn well over $5 million on the internet and keep a majority of it in my early 20s. And I just want to talk from just pure experience and hopefully add some value to you today and give you the velocity and speed to create the business and the life that you want to create, okay? So stick around to the very end. This may be one of the most powerful videos that I ever make. And I know for a fact that I'm going to get some comments of people saying like, oh, Trey, these are good enough philosophical ideas, life lessons, kind of high level things, but like, what exactly did you do to make all this money? And I want to share that with you. I linked in the description a video that tells you step by step exactly how to start the exact business that I made all of my money with, but that is for another time. If you want to check it out, links in the description. I'm going to get right into the 7 habits that have enabled me to build a $5 million total sales volume by the age of 23. So let's talk. So the very, very first, and I'm actually going to start kind of on a different note than most people will, but this was spiritual and scriptural guidance. So one of the habits that I've developed is learning to rely on things that don't change when I'm experiencing a lot of change. And, you know, I'm a devout Christian by faith. And in that, I believe that God never changes. And even if you don't believe in God, even if you're not a Christian, you can at least accept that in such crazy times that we're living in our culture, we kind of have to stick to things that just don't change and that are pillar cornerstones for us to build lives off of. So what I mean by this is kind of a high level habit, but I want you to stick with me. It means not just following trends just because it's what everybody's doing, or not just playing into the current conversation just because it's what everybody's doing. You know, I'm trying to figure out the things that have always worked and that will always work, and I apply those things. So an example of this would be the sort of business that I created. It's a timeless business that will always, always, always be around. There will always be a need for it. And as well as that, it's the books that I read. You know, I don't read the most common sort of, you know, pop culture-y books that are super hot right now. I read the stuff that like has been reread over and over and over again by people for like, you know, decades. I'm talking like, you know, for those of you who are like David Ogilvy for like marketing and advertising, the guy who's been around since the 50s, right? Things like Dale Carnegie and When Friends Influence People, books that have been around for forever. And for me, this also includes scripture. You know, scripture has not changed. It continues to say the same things over and over and over again on repeat, like clockwork. It's never going to change because it's God's word and God doesn't change. So whether you believe in God or not, I want you to adopt the habit of not just following trends and going with the wave, but actually try and find the hidden patterns beneath things and cling to those things. Because it's those things that you can really build off of. You know, though the internet has changed some things, at the end of the day, people are still people, and the way that you used to influence and do business with people is still the same way, though maybe in a different medium. So if you can study the people that are successful decades ago, a lot of their ideas will still apply. All right, so now for the second habit, and this was actually way more common and something you're gonna hear a lot in these videos. The second habit is exercise, physical exertion, going to the gym every single day. Now I wanna butcher this quote, but there's a quote from, I think it's like Socrates or something, and he's like, you know, I train the body so that it doesn't get in the way of the mind. And I really, really believe this. You know, I like looking, you know, kind of buff and having an arm and whatever. It's great. It's a good, nice perk, but to be honest, I just want to be strong. I want to be physically fit, take care of myself so that I have the energy to pour into the work that I do every single day. I refuse to allow my body to be a bottleneck on my success. Because the reality is, no matter how much creativity you have, no matter how much vision you have, no matter how good the business model is that you're in, if you can only put out like 3 or 4 hours a day of focused work, you're just going to get dusted by the people who maybe aren't even as smart as you, but just have more energy. You know, human energy is one of these things that we just can't get more of. It's a scarce resource. So I believe in taking care of my body so that whatever it is that I do thrives because I have the abundance of energy to pour into it. Now, I will say that I am 23 years old, so right now it's quite easy for me to say this, right? But I do have the plans to continue to stay healthy much, much later in life. You know, my father, he's like in his mid-50s. I actually don't know his exact age, but the dude can freaking run a marathon. Like, it just runs in my family to just take care of your body and keep it out of the way so you can do a better work for other people. You know, I remember when I was just growing up, my dad, I was asking him, you know, why do you run? Why do you work out? Why do you take care of yourself like this? I used to think it was kind of cheesy. Like, I kind of fell into like this really like degenerate mantra when I was like 12 or 13 of like, oh, why are you running? What are you running from? Or, oh, why are you going to the gym? You know, who are you going to fight? You know, and just kind of poking fun at people who do fitness stuff. And I realize now how just toxic that is, because my dad told me something phenomenal. He said, you know, son, the reason why I do it is because it keeps me able to focus on other people. Like, if I get sick or if something happens to me, I can't do the work that I'm called to do. And I just think that that's a beautiful way of putting it. All right, so the third habit of the 7 is asking questions from a place of humility and having what one of my friends calls Zen beginner's mind. I heard this from him first than anybody else. But this is the idea that, you know, whenever you do something, you have to keep a beginner's mind. If you get an ego and start to think that you have it all together, then you stop learning, and that's when your growth will guarantee to plateau. So asking questions like, what did I do wrong and what can I learn from that? Or how can I guarantee that this succeeds? Or who's an expert at this thing so I can get their help? You know, these things are questions I've continued to ask myself at every juncture of my growth process, and it has enabled me to have a speedy sort of growth because I've really worked to keep the sort of humility necessary to accept my failures, see them as data, see them as just a response to actions that I've done, and then ask questions and distill lessons from those things. So this habit sort of looks like if you have a failure, not like hiding it and putting it away, but like bringing it to the surface and saying, hey, like somebody that I respect, what would you do in this situation? How can I be better here? And allowing that humility to drive you forward. And I'm not perfect at this. There's been times where I've had really embarrassing, deep, dark, frustrating failures that like I could have never seen coming. But even in those moments, I've had to work with myself and just say, okay, I'm still a beginner, like a Zen beginner's mind. What would a beginner do here? Well, he would probably, you know, ask what's the lesson and then learn from it. All right, so moving on to the 4th habit. And this habit I call speed is king. And this is the idea that when you know you need to do something, the speed at which you know you should do something and that you either do it or plan to do it soon is the speed at which you create the success you desire in your life. So if you can take a thing that would take you 3 hours to complete and complete it in 30 minutes and just do it sooner, you know, you've taken the amount of time it's going to take for you to reach your goals over the next 5 years and 4x'd your speed because you moved something that would take a minute or 4 hours into, you know, 30 minutes. And so when I say speed is king, what I mean is when a task gets assigned to me or a team member needs something from me, or I realize that something needs done in the business or in my life, I try my best to take care of things quickly. And I have what I call the 2-minute rule. And that's that if something can be done in 2 minutes, I do it immediately. If it takes longer than that, then I put it on a to-do list. And I have a very active sort of physical journal to-do list of things that I'm constantly working on. And outside of my strict 6 p.m. Sort of cutoff policy for my work, I work like a machine every single day to move quickly and do what's necessary rapidly every single day. All right, so moving on to the 5th habit. This is surrounding myself with success, okay? Now, the harsh reality of being somebody who aims at making a lot of money and doing very well for myself is I just don't have the room to entertain relationships that don't serve the mission, okay? And this is tough. It was tough for me because I'm very friends-oriented and community-oriented, but I had to find a new group that really empowered what I was after. So I both paid for these groups, I networked my way into sort of circles, I was active in online communities, I went to events and things and just met this group, and now I've got, you know, friends of mine that are doing $2 million a month in sales that I could call and ask for questions, or I've got, you know, friends of mine that I've seen even fly way farther than me in a shorter amount of time, which is very humbling, by the way. And when that happens, it expands your mentality and you see, wow, what is actually sort of possible? Because a lot of these people, they're playing with the same cards that you're playing with and they're just using them in a different way. And you realize what can actually be done. So to use this habit, I want to encourage you to spend the next 1 to 2 years prioritizing building a network of at least 5 people that are of the level of success that you'd like to be to in the next 1 to 5 years, and add value to them, invest in those relationships, and genuinely want to see them succeed act in accordance with that and be a valuable relationship to them. Successful business people, they don't do surface level relationships. They want to know that there's something mutually beneficial here. And so you need to dig deep and figure out, what can I do for these people and how can I add value to them? I've gone ahead and bought $15,000 Rolexes for, colleagues of mine in business that I just want to invest into that relationship and just say congratulations. And one of my buddies went on to do $1 million month, his first $1 million month. So I helped him get started like 4 years ago. And then he just ratchet things up, and he has a $1 million month in November last year. So I bought him a watch as a thank you. And that's how serious I take my relationships, because I understand the power of relationship capital. And I've made some really stupid mistakes here where I judged somebody too quickly, or judged their character, or cut them out. You're gonna make mistakes with this one, but trust me, you have to see the good in everybody and invest into those relationships and allow their influence and their success to speak to your success. So now on to the 6th habit, and this is daily distraction removal. So a lot of people think that focus is just focusing, but I actually believe that focus is a byproduct of elimination of distraction. So it's actually quite easy to focus on something that you care about when there's nothing else going on, right? So obviously we all want to succeed and build our businesses, but it's actually not hard to focus. It's just difficult because sometimes you build like distraction debt, like things pile up, and keeping them out of the way as a daily practice has really, really helped me. So for example, this could be like little things about like my work environment, like the Wi-Fi cuts in and out. Like I'm going to call the company and fix that immediately. It has to work clean all day, every day, right? Or another example would be like, I actually have multiple laptop chargers for different rooms in my home. So that way, like if I go to one room, I can make sure it's plugged in, go to another room, make sure it's plugged in. I don't have to carry the charger with me. Now, this sounds like a little thing, but it really, really helps. Another one is having like shirts that I cycle. So I've only got like 5 shirts that I really wear. And then that way I can just cycle those and not really worry about what I'm going to wear. Same with pants and underwear and everything. I just have a few pieces of clothes that I just sort of cycle, and I don't really have to, each piece of clothing goes with every other piece of clothing. So I don't really have to like think that hard about it, right? And then another one is like accounting and bookkeeping and tax. Like I've got somebody that does that for me. And other things like this. So, and at one point I even had like a personal assistant that I paid, $75 an hour. I think it was like $100 an hour actually, to just do a bunch of like little things and sort of clean up my life a little bit for a minute, because I had so many things going on. So I want you to practice getting rid of distractions, and then focus actually comes quite naturally. It's not a matter of ignoring what's going on around you to focus. It's a matter of actually sort of every day making it a daily discipline to get rid of little things that will distract you. All right, so now on to the seventh and probably most important habit of everything that I've shared today. This is a great place to end the video. And this habit is focusing solely on what I call asymmetric activities. So an asymmetric activity is something that takes a little bit of effort, but you get a lot of yield for it. So, talented entrepreneurs and business people have the ability to, after, a year or two of putting in a ton of work, being able to recognize the little things that really got them the furthest, and either delegating or eliminating all those little daily tasks, the small things, and then just focusing solely on the asymmetric activities. So, for example, in the businesses that I help people start, it's taking sales calls. Like sales calls is where you make your money. So it's doing activities that book sales calls today or in the future, whether that's putting out content or prospecting or booking. Like that's an asymmetric activity. That's something that you put a little bit in and you get a lot out. Because when you run a business, or really when you exist as a human, really, there's so many things you could do. So it's figuring out what are the things that really matter, and then building a sort of schedule and sort of work like regimen that prioritizes the asymmetric and delegates or eliminates the things that don't really compound and don't actually move the needle. And if you're just getting started, you don't know what these things are, you know what I mean? So you don't really know what to do or exactly what those asymmetric activities are. You don't have that step-by-step plan of do this, then do this, and do this. These are the main actions that you should focus on. And look, if you just want to replicate my results, you just want to do exactly what I did, I've linked a video in the description that I mentioned at the start of the video. You can check it out. It's kind of like a full in-depth training of the exact business model that I made my first $1 million profit after expenses and everything at 21 years old. So I can sort of share you what that business is. It's the one that got me started, and it sort of led to the momentum that I have today. So hopefully that's a helpful video for you. And so that's the final tip. That's the 7th habit of focusing on asymmetric activities. Now, if this video has been value to you at all, subscribe, leave a like, comment a positive comment down below. I'll be sure to reply to a lot of them, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.